Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to the Empowering Women series. My name is Pia McAdams. I'm an author, I'm an accounting professor, and also a certified life coach. I specialize in personal and small business finance and also fitness. And I'm so excited today to be bringing to you this broadcast series called Empowering Women. And just so you know, this is a series where we as women can kind of come together and share our stories, our life journeys, our experiences, our struggles, our successes, our failures. Basically just to understand that we all are going through the same thing, this journey called life, and that there are lessons along the life that we're learning, things that we're going through, and things that we need to share to see that we're not alone. Because some of you out there, you're going through something right now. You're struggling with something specific right now, and you're feeling all alone. So I want you to know that you are not alone in this journey, that we are here with you. And so that's the premise of this Empowering Women series. So today I'm so excited to be introducing to you to Toyinda Smith. Now Toyinda's story is actually, you notice the title says twice dejected, twice divorced and dejected to building a championship lifestyle. So just kind of tell you a little bit about Toyinda. She was actually born and raised in Gary, Indiana, spent her whole life there. Now her education background is this: she went to Purdue University, graduated with associates. Let me look at my notes here because this is a lot. She graduated with associates with organizational leadership and supervisory. She got her associates in that. She got a double bachelor's in psychology and also sociology. And then she went to Indiana State University and got a master's in student affairs and higher education. Now, when Toyinda was at Purdue, she actually spent 14 years in various leadership roles. And then she started her own business. It's been about 3 years now. And I'm going to let her talk a little bit more about that. But she started her own business. And so I'm just so excited to be presenting Toyinda and then also to hear her story. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get her on. All right, Toyinda, you're on. How are you?
I am well, Pia. Thank you so much for having me. I just appreciate the opportunity to share.
You're welcome. So tell us about yourself. Tell us about your story.
Absolutely. I am such a giving person. So I'm going to start there, very purposeful and passionate. And I have a personal mission to make a positive impact, doing something that makes positive impact with people who are positively impactful. And when I think about the transitions in my life, it causes me to always stay in that vein. So you've already given an introduction with my educational background, but I'm going to talk from my personal perspective because that education is excellent, right? That piece of paper looks phenomenal. The resume, girl. Right? But I want to come in and talk a little bit about my personal experience. I am a people's person, and like most women, we desire companionship. Okay, I would say most of us desire that. And that was always a big area in my life, to have a level of companionship. Okay. And so started dating my high school sweetheart, right? And we finally got married after I graduated from Purdue University. And within that, there were bumps in the road. He's a good person. I'll say that there were bumps in the road because we were so young and kind of growing and coming into ourselves. And I know that as women, we do that. We stay connected because we've spent time with another person. So it was, and I led in and said that I was very persistent, right? Very persistent. So I stayed the course. We got married and just really learned that we were really not ready for marriage. But because it was an area of my life that I just wanted to have a companion at that time, we went on and got married, and 4 years later, divorced. Now, during that time,
can I ask you a question before you go on? And sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to know, so I know you said this was your high school sweetheart. So did you date anyone else in between, or it was basically just him?
It was just him. So, we had that connection, right? We had that tie together that we just knew each other. And that's why it was really hard to disengage or to have a dissolution there, because we had spent a lot of time together. And I know that most women, we do that. Okay, we do that because we put time in, and men do as well. So we were together, and I think the marriage lasted maybe, I have to think about this, I think we lasted 4 years within the marriage. But during that time, we also had 2 children. My daughter's 14, my son is 13 now. But during that time, when we were really struggling, we decided that, you know, it's not going to work. Even when my children were young, my children are 16 months apart, and we were divorced I filed for divorce in January of 2004. Okay. My son was born in March of 2004. So you could imagine some of the trauma and the turmoil that I was dealing with carrying a baby, and also physically carrying a baby, to moving to that level of dissolution, that level of transition. But I was able to do that. Now, because of that, I did have feelings of being dejected, depressed, and it was difficult. It was very difficult. And I was used to being a champion, right? I was used to winning at everything. I didn't get a chance to talk about that, but I had a phenomenal opportunity to be a national caliber athlete at Purdue University.
Okay.
I walked on the team at Purdue University, and I walked off a national champion. I also won our Big Ten Conference championship 5 times, and then our team together won my senior year. We won the team title. So I was used to winning, right? I was used to being very successful. So after that area of my life ended, I said, listen, success has to still come, right? And success in my personal life. But to get married, to have the children, and to get divorced then caused me to go into a low point of my life, because I always won, right? I was always a champion. So it caused me to go into a low point of my life. But because of my athletic experience, it allowed me to move forward. Because really in athletics, I learned to be tenacious. I learned what achievement felt like. I learned how to adapt to different environments. I was a thrower, and so we had to throw in the rain. We threw when it was hot and sunny. I mean, we even practiced when there was snow in the infield in Indiana. So I learned to adapt to things. I learned how to maneuver through critiques or scrutiny. Right. And then I also understood what a team mentality meant. And so those are some of the qualities and the attributes that I used to bounce back, right, to become a champion again in that area. So it was difficult, but I was able to bring in those elements so that I can then begin to shift my mindset a little bit. I'm going to move now into, and I was still working at Purdue University at that time. So I'll move now into my experience with the second divorce. So I'm divorced for the first time, and 4 years later, I remarried. And again, I'm still working at Purdue University in different leadership capacities. And with this person, he was a great person, but my personality was really big. And that personality was causing, I would say, a little conflict in our space. Okay. So that marriage was very unhealthy, mentally, emotionally. And I know professional women go through that. I didn't talk to anybody about that emotional and that mental unhealthiness. I'm being nice here, right? Unhealthiness. It was unhealthy situation. I didn't really talk about that because I was a professional woman. I was this champion of old, right? And I still carried that weight in the area that I lived within. So Miss Champion Toyinda is again now she was married before, now she's divorced, she's remarried, and here are some unhealthy issues happening. And so I had to pull myself out of that situation, which was very difficult. And I know that some women struggle in that area because of shame, You know, we don't want to be shamed. We don't want to be embarrassed. But it's necessary for us to remove ourselves from that type of situation. So removed myself from that situation and actually removed myself from the state of Indiana. So I moved to Hartsville, South Carolina in August of 2015. So here I am now in Hartsville.
Let me ask you this. How that transition you actually went through, because that's where women struggle. It's like, how did you make that decision to finally just say, you know what, I got to move on?
Absolutely. So I'm going to say it this way because I'm a woman of faith. They're very strong in my faith. I really had to listen to God in that situation because a lot of times what I did, because I was used to handling life, I was used to handling life my way. I had to sit down and say, Lord, I don't want this life for myself and I don't want this life for my children. I want to be the champion that you made me, the champion that you made me at Purdue, the champion you made me in my professional life. I want to be a champion again. And then I had to sit still and listen for the answers. So the Lord downloaded strategy in me, and I have a coaching friend. His name is Benny Morgan. He, at that time, was coaching at Coker College, coaching track and field, and he had tried to get me to coach with him for like 8 years, and I wouldn't. I was married. I was working, living pretty good in West Lafayette, working at Purdue University, and I didn't want to make that type of shift. But because I was willing at that time to surrender to whatever the Lord was telling me that I needed to do at that time, I was willing to surrender to that voice and listen. So I called Coach Benny and I said, Coach, do you need a coach, right? Because the Lord was kind of tapping into that area for me. Do you need a coach? And he said, yes, I do. Come on down, right? So I said, Lord, if you want me to move to South Carolina and specifically Hartsville, make everything smooth, make the transition smooth, make it work. So I moved to South Carolina. I come to South Carolina in June of 2015 to visit the space. I went over to the middle school to meet the faculty there. And I was talking about housing, and they told me that I shouldn't move into an apartment, but maybe go look to see if I could find a house to rent. So I went on a search for that, and I came up against 2 houses, and both of the houses said the houses were for sale. So I said, well, these houses are for sale. So I left that space and I went over to a restaurant called Cookout, and I sat down and I had a burger, and I started talking to the Lord again. I said, Lord, I don't know, what we're going to do about housing. I said I would move to South Carolina if you made the way happen. So I heard the Lord say, call this one specific number. And I did it, right? Because I said, I'm going to listen to the Lord and not Toyinda. I called the one number and I told the guy my story. Listen, I'm thinking about moving to Hartsville. I'm from Indiana. I'm going to potentially coach for one of the coaches at Coker College. I said, I saw your house is for sale. Are you willing to rent? The voice said yes.
Wow.
So,
wow.
And that's not the best part of it. So the guy said yes. And then he asked me, who are you thinking about coaching for? And I said, Benny Morgan. And he said, oh, well, my office is right next to Benny's office. Can you believe that? And then he goes on to tell me that he is from Indiana. So I said, okay, Lord, we are really going to move to South Carolina. So that area was set up. Additionally, Coker College had an adjunct faculty position in communications open. I looked at that job for about a week and a half. And again, I'm still saying, Lord, if you want me to go, we need things set up. And I finally applied for that adjunct position in communication. Do you know that they called me and said, we want to interview you?
Wow.
Now, I shared with you what my master's degree is within. It's in student affairs and higher education. So I didn't necessarily have all of the qualifications, although I'm a public speaker through my company. I do a lot of training, a lot of facilitation. So they looked at that entire package and they said, listen, we think you will still be great for that job.
Wow.
So the Lord set that up for me. So that's how that transition happened. But I believe the other end of that is the way that happened is because I have two foundational areas that have always worked in my life. I have high levels of belief. So I have high levels of belief in myself, which is really self-efficacy, right? That's the concept that Albert Bandura developed. He's a social psychologist, and he developed this, and he says, listen, self-efficacy is what you believe about your own ability to do a thing. So I have high levels of self-efficacy, and then I talked about my faith levels. I also have high levels of belief or high levels of faith in the God that I serve. And so those two concepts, those two foundational pieces working together allowed me to push past the trauma, to push past the hurt, to push past the dejection and the depression, to move forward into bringing back or reviving the champion that was within me. Because I had that experience. I had that experience of winning. I had the experience of being my best. And it's those types of qualities that had to be pulled out of me or brought to my remembrance so that I could then begin to live this championship lifestyle. So really those 5 areas of athletics, the tenacity, the adaptation, the ability to know how to achieve and know what strategies that I need to prepare myself for and to take in order to achieve, and to be able to accept scrutiny. You will have critiques that come to improve you. And then just to have a team mentality. I have my children, and so they were a part of the team. And so I had to use them in an effort to move forward, to have a team mentality there.
So now let me ask you this now, because understanding your story and what you went through, and I like how you said you have the self-efficacy and also the self-belief. But when you're going, take us back to the people that are going through this depression now, whatever it may be, and they may not have like you had the training from your championship background with your track and field. So there was some different characteristics that were instilled in you. But what about people that didn't really have that? What would you say to them?
Absolutely. I think, and really the research does show, in order to build levels of self-efficacy, because when we have high self-confidence, high self-esteem, high self-actualization, when we have those areas of our lives, then we can springboard past the things that pull us down, or the things that cause areas of dejection. So to build self-efficacy, we have to be around individuals who have experienced what we've experienced, individuals that are where we want to be. So the first thing I would say is to make sure your inner circle is the best inner circle possible. I'll just use that term. It's the best. So it's an inner circle of people who have had adversity, but have moved through the adversity. And they are around you to say, listen, I've experienced that, and here are ways that I have made it through, or I have also made it through. So the inner circle, we need to be around people who are doing great things in spite of adversity. So that's the first thing. Make sure we're around the right people, right? Because I tell my children, if you are hanging around 4 clowns, you're the 5th and 6th clown, right? Conversely, if I am spending my time with and learning from 4 CEOs, I'm the 5th CEO. Maybe it's not right now, but it is going to be later because of the information that I'm receiving. So the first thing is to come out of negative environments, come out of environments that pull you back into the trauma, and the drama of life experiences and befriend and associate with the right type of inner circle. The second thing is to do things that build your self-efficacy. So if you want to, for example, if you want to be a professional speaker, for example, right? We're transitioning. I want to be a professional speaker. Well, you've got to speak for 5 minutes in front of a warm crowd or in front of your family, right? When they clap and applaud you, that's a win, right? So I've won in that situation. I start to build my self-confidence. I start to believe in my ability, then push yourself into another space, right? So now that I've spoken for 5 minutes in front of my family, I'm going to speak for 10 minutes in front of my friends. When I win in that situation again, now my belief in my ability begins to come up again. Push yourself another time. Move into maybe people that you know, but they're not necessarily friends. Go and speak with them for 15 minutes. And so what I'm essentially saying is you've got to practice winning. You've got to put yourself in environments that give you little wins, because they then begin to build you up into the bigger champion that you are, right? It starts to revive that winning spirit within you. So the first one is to have the right inner circle, because the people around you truly does determine your potential. All right. And then the second one is to put yourselves in situations that'll give you a little win to then begin to build that self-efficacy. And then the third area, which is the most important area, is your thought pattern. So our mindset has to be shifted. We have to first even think that we can win, think that we can be a champion, think that we will move ourselves out of the traumatic spaces, for example, because as we think, so are we. As a man thinketh, so are we. And the thoughts happen, those thoughts get into our heart, right? So out of our heart, everything flows. So then we begin to talk in a different way. So your narrative has to shift regardless of what's happening. So those three things, the self-efficacy, we've got to build it. We've got to do smaller things that we win at that then builds our confidence. We have to have the right people around us, our inner circle, because the inner circle really does determine how far we're going to go. It determines our potential. My pastor says your network determines your net worth.
Right.
Okay? So we've got to be around the right people, even through the traumatic spaces. And then we have to get our mind right. We have to shift our thinking. So my divorce, both of them, my divorces, I could have immediately said, Toyinda, you are not worth a companion. You are not worth being with a man who's prominent, for example. You know, I could have stayed in that place, because I'll be honest with you, I was thinking that. I'll be very honest. I was definitely thinking that, but I had to shift my mindset. Carol DeWick, she has she's developed and studied what's called a growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. And that growth mindset says, listen, this is really just a starting point. I don't care how many failures I have had. I don't care how many times I missed the mark. It was a starting point. I can add new strategy. I can add new levels of understanding, new knowledge bases to get me to the right result. And that's where I am today. That is what I'm using today to be a champion again. So those three areas. Oh,
good. That's some good stuff. Thanks for sharing that. All right. So now let's pass so now you're in South Carolina.
So I'm in South Carolina. The Lord opened up several doors for me. So I am an adjunct faculty in South Carolina. I'm currently, this is the other part of me. You all are going to laugh. I own the Hartsville Balloon Company. So what does that have to do with the leadership consulting, right? So I've been doing balloons for about 16 years. I started balloons back in West Lafayette as a part-time hustle, right? It was a part-time way for me to have multiple sources of income because my salary at Purdue when I first started it was enough to pay bills, but it wasn't enough for me to go shopping. I love shoes. So I started that balloon business, and I'll tell you how I started that. A lady came in from my hometown. I was doing some floral centerpieces for a church that I was attending in West Lafayette. She came in. Her name is Nigel McLeod. She did a balloon arch. I said, oh my gosh, that's so pretty. She showed me how to do a balloon arch. She said, it's easy to start a business. Just go down to the Department of Revenue, choose a business name and pay $25. So I did that at the end of the month because at the university, we are salaried and we get paid one time a month, right? So at the end of the month, I went to the Department of Revenue, filled out for my business name, got a tax ID, and I said, okay, I'm a business owner. Now what, right? So I met a lady who was already doing balloons in the area. And she told me, she said, Toyinda, I am going to allow you to come with me on my balloon jobs, my balloon projects, so that you can learn, so that you can do this the right way. I go with her for maybe 6 months and I do work, and she teaches me, proper technique. She helps me to get my certification, which is Certified Balloon Artist through Pioneer Balloon Network. So she helped me to get that certification. But what's awesome about that experience is that when I was done learning, then I would be direct competition.
Yes.
And
yes. Most people don't do that.
Most people do not do that. So this is really why I do what I do, that I respond to people the way that I respond to people. This is why I'm very open with my past experiences, because other people have sown into my life that have really allowed me to basically reset myself, right? To become a champion again. So she taught me that. I've been doing balloons for 16 years. I brought my balloon business here to South Carolina with me. Still new to the area, of course. So that was going to be a rebranding. Brought my balloon business here to South Carolina. And then I also brought in the consulting company, the Leadership Strategy and Consulting LLC. So I am volunteering back and fill coach. Okay. Coach. I own the Hartsville Balloon Company, and so I'm making connections on comrades in order to grow that and to get the word out for that. And then I'm also building my consulting company and positioning myself as a leadership authority in the community. And my company is Leadership Strategy and Consulting LLC. And what I share with people is that I equip women, teams, and organizations to be champions in every single area of life.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So tell us a little bit about some of the people that you've helped.
Absolutely. I've worked with a local, she's a restaurant owner, I'll say that. And I've worked a little bit with her on some strategy to build more clientele coming in. I've also worked with her in terms of, I kind of did some coaching work to help her to build her self-efficacy, because that's a really big space for a lot of women who are entrepreneurs, is what do you believe about your ability to succeed? So just worked with her in terms of that area, and that has gone well. That's gone well there. I've also, a couple people I've coached in terms of, is a young lady out of Florence, South Carolina. She wrote a book, and it was an excellent book about singleness, or how to prepare yourself for marriage. But she had not been thinking about her next levels. She was at the author level, but not necessarily the entrepreneur level. So I helped her to what I would call rewire her mindset so that she can then begin to think in terms of being an entrepreneur. So what she's doing now is launching a speaking and training company to help her to advance the space of being an author, but then also being an entrepreneur. So I'm really excited to see that growth. In terms of training, leadership training, I've worked with a couple of government agencies in South Carolina, governmental officials. And so I've worked with them in terms of team development, using personality styles to help them to understand the types of teams, the types of team members that they have, and how best to function completely. And that went well, where they called me back to come in and work with some of their other leadership there. So I'm pretty excited about that. I've had opportunities to work with Fifth Third Bank back in Indiana. What we developed just how to use your emotional intelligence to work with your customers a little better. So I've had some pretty good wins. One other win that I have had last year, because was it last year? I have to think. Everything runs together for me. But I had an opportunity, it was last November, I had an opportunity to partner with the Chamber of Commerce to host what's called the John Maxwell Live to Lead leadership broadcast. So the fact that the Chamber of Commerce partnered with me, being new into the city, was definitely a win. And so we were able to host different officials. We had the CEO of one of the credit unions in town there. We've had several different officials in the building. And so that went well. So I've had a lot of opportunities to build relationships with people to help me to move to that next level, and that's being more comfortable in the city, or being more known in the city. So I've had a great opportunity there.
So let me ask you this, because I noticed when you start off with your first story, when you first got divorced, you were kind of shameful. You didn't really share your story. Now with the second one, did you find yourself more open with sharing what happened to the second one? And what was the differences between that first experience, that second experience, versus like sharing versus not sharing, if you did share it?
Right. The difference was that I really began to hear from God, to learn that part of my life is connected to the work that I'm doing now. It was a connection. And so I had to be a little more transparent in that space because we all start off at the same level. Every great person, we start at the same level. It's a start, and then we build. But what I needed to share with any of my clients and people who are not my clients was that trauma happens, adversity happens, but it's how we approach it, after the fact. It's what we do after the fact. It's the narrative that we share after the fact. So the only reason, and I'm being honest, the only reason why I'm sharing it is because it's a direct correlation with the work that I'm doing in my consulting company. Absolutely. It means something. It carries weight and it adds value because everybody has a story. And as a professional woman, I didn't want to seem vulnerable. Hey, listen, I'm a champion. I'm a former national champion. That means I was the best of the best in the nation. I can't be vulnerable, right? So sometimes you have that mindset. And what that really is pride. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's pride, right? And fear. And so in order for me to be the best consultant, to be the best leadership coach, to be the best speaker, I have to be able to release that area or talk about that narrative so that then I can move from being dejected to being a champion again, but then that I can help others move from being depressed and dejected for whatever reason, might not be divorce, but move in order to that championship lifestyle. I have a talk that I present to women And the title is Reset Buttons Are Not Just for Electronics.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So where do they talk if they want to hear this talk?
If they want to hear the talk, they want to bring me in to speak to their group, they can find me at www.toyconsults, that's TOYCONSULTS.com. And all they need to do is just click on the contact area that it says book me, but just click there, send your information, and I'll reach back out to you. But reset buttons are not just for electronics.
Okay. Well, is there anything else that you want to share with us, Toyinda?
Absolutely. I just want to share that it's my intent to work with all of my clients to help them to rewire their mindset, because I had to do that in order to push past any hurt, any pain, any failures in order to be a champion. The second thing, I want to encourage you to get into a space where you can have your passion refired, right? So this is reviving that inner champion that you are. And again, that's going to come from your thought pattern. Right. That also comes from your thought patterns, right? So what you're thinking, you are. So we have to think a little differently during any struggles. And then the third one is to prepare yourself for the reset. There is opportunity for you to reset yourself, to get yourself back on a championship track, because I did it. I had to do it as well. And, people may be thinking, oh, she has these degrees, she was a champion. But I'm still a human being, and I hurt, and I let my emotions sometimes take over the logical part of what needs to be happening. So rewire your mindset, refire your passion, and reset yourself to get back on that championship lifestyle track. And I can help with that. If you go to my website, you will find me there. I can reach back out to you. And I just want to share to you that I also have what's called championship lifestyle camps. And these are webinars that I facilitate for women to help you to advance and expand beyond your current space. So what I do is I help you to strengthen your current strengths. Who are you? How do you gain remarkable results? Well, I help you with that in terms of helping you walk through and understand your strength patterns and your personality types. In that camp, I also assist women in finding their voice at decision-making tables, because sometimes we don't know how to talk about our professional side, right? We don't know how to bring facts to the table. For example, sometimes we say, I believe. And that's fine that you have a belief, but it's important to bring in the facts and the statistics and the sound information so that the individuals that you're sitting at the table with can then begin to say, okay, yes, that makes sense. That's not a woman's personality where we're nurturing and we feel and we believe, where we're very strong with the word choice that we're using. So,
uh-oh. Looks like we lost Toyinda there. If we are still live, if Toyinda comes back on, I'll give her a few minutes to see if she can actually get back on the live. But she's actually sharing some really, really good information. So I hope you guys are actually taking notes of this. And then please do share this information, because there's some good stuff that she's talking about, especially with the self-efficacy, because that's one of the things that really kind of drives us down. If you don't love yourself first, then when it comes to the struggles and the failures and the bumps in the roads that we go through life, it's going to just put you that much down, not only put you that much down further, but it's also what's going to keep you down, because if you don't have the self-love to bring you up, then what is going to bring you up? Because all this stuff sounds great, right? We can tell you what to do and what we've done in these similar instances, but if it's not something that you can actually relate to, like particularly when you're actually going through it, then it's not, you're going to say this stuff doesn't help. That's just lollygag. That's just talk in the wind. But this stuff really, really does help and does work. But understand that there is a certain level of where you need to be in order for it to work. And that level is that you have to have self-love. Okay, so you have to have self-confidence, respect, and I love that you say surround yourself around the people, because the 5 people that you hang around with, if you're hanging around people that are just depressive, okay, I see Toyinda's back on, so I'll give the seat to her in just a minute, but just kind of finish up. If you're hanging around people, like she said, clowns, you're going to be the 5th clown. So it's very, very important to surround yourself with with a positive, upbeat person so that when you are on that low level, you will be able to go back up. All right, so you went off, so I just kind of summarizing what you were saying. So go ahead and finish on. I'll give it.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. So I was talking about the Championship Lifestyle Camp, but it's a series of webinars that, again, help to expand and advance women in terms of their professional career and even their personal and spiritual life. So I focus on helping them to understand how they get remarkable results. So we look at your strength. What do you use day in and day out to be remarkable? How do you get those results? And then we also move into helping women to use their voice at the table, because sometimes we're sitting at the table, but we don't say anything. Right. And it's important for us to frame our knowledge so that it's meaningful, it's engaging, and it also is persuasive. So we're using a persuasive tone. I told you I teach speech communication at Coker College. So I understand what we have to do in order to speak persuasively. And then the third area is finishing. We get distracted at times, and it's important for us to start and finish our projects. And so I give strategy and I teach women how to do that and be successful there. Hi, Gina. It's one of my teammates from Purdue. She's on, but okay. I use those things to help women to move forward. And so it's a 12 series webinar program called Championship Lifestyle Camp. And then the second thing I want to make people aware of is that I'm also going to begin to certify. Hi, Angie. Love you. I'm also going to begin to certify individuals to teach this, to be a championship lifestyle certified coach. And that's going to be through my company, Leadership Strategy and Consulting LLC. So if you're interested in understanding, 1, the coaching profession, 2, how to facilitate better, 3, how to be a more confident public speaker, and then 4, you want to understand this championship lifestyle curriculum that I have developed, then you want to join my championship lifestyle certified coaching program, and that'll actually be out this September. So they can sign up for it by going to my website, www.toyconsults.com. Just go into the contact section, and although it says book me, just still click there and leave your information and let me know that you're interested. But I am having a phenomenal experience, and the reason being is because I was able to release the fact that I'm not perfect. I'm perfecting. Even as a professional, we're not perfect, we're perfecting. And so we have to be able to release the past so that we can then begin to function in the present, because we're moving to our future. So the past has passed. The present is happening now. Live for your future.
I love it. All right. So, and before I ask, because one of the things I was talking about before when you kind of went off, Toyinda, was I was kind of recapping what you were saying, but I was leading to this. When you're down, that's why it's very important what you're talking about with surrounding yourself around the people, because the work doesn't just happen when you're low. The work is always happening. So like you're saying, build these little small wins so that when you have a low, it won't be a low. I mean, there's going to be lows in life, but you can bounce back quickly. So don't think like, for instance, all these things that you're hearing, even on not just on this broadcast, but on the other ones, and you're hearing people's, bounce back, and it may seem like it's quick and it's not a lot of work. It is work, and that's what we're trying to share with you is that. But you got to be willing to do the work. You can't be It's not going to be a quick fix. It's not going to be like, oh, she said do this, that, and the other, and so I'm going to do this, that, and the other. It's going to work the one time. But it's the multiple, it's the cumulative effect of doing it over a period of time that's really what's going to help you. So that's what I want you to understand, because I know, even myself included, when you're down low, you don't want to hear any of this. Like, seriously, right? You don't want to hear any of this. Like, you're just low, and you kind of like want to wallow in your low. And so, but how I always think of it like this: you have 2 choices, like literally stay in your low or do something about it. Okay.
Yes.
Think of it that simple. Is that also what you think about as well, Toyinda?
Absolutely. And I also think about it in terms of pivot or pursue. All right. So we're either going to pursue the space that you're currently in, or you're going to pivot and start a new thing. So pivot or pursue. And the only way that you'll be able to make a decision of whether you're going to pivot or pursue is through the experience, through sitting down and saying, listen, let me be very sober. Because what happens is we get drunk within our emotions. We do not function in a sober mindset when we start to make decisions.
Absolutely.
And so I tried to rest my mindset when all of the trauma was happening so that I could figure out whether I would pursue or pivot. In both of my situations, I sat down and said, is this going to work? If we go to counseling, if I compromise, if he compromises, is this going to work? And so because of those experiences, I had to come to the understanding that, Toyinda, you have to pivot. You have to pivot. Okay. And of course, I was still talking to God along the way, and he was talking back to me. And the best thing for individuals to do, if you are at that space in your life where you said, Lord, I'm going to surrender this to you, you have to be willing to listen.
Absolutely.
This is one other quote that I talk to some of my friends and clients about. I say, once you understand your why, the pain or the pressure in the pursuit becomes worth it. Because I understood my assignment. I understand my assignment in the natural, and I understand my assignment in the supernatural. And that is to shift atmospheres. That is my assignment. And because I understood that, the pressure that comes, it's worth it. It's worth it in business. It's worth it in your spiritual space, and it's worth it in your professional life.
I love it. Hey, let's bring this back full circle, because you started off by talking about, as like a lot of women, you don't like to be alone. So where are you now with that?
Right. So we're going back to the trust in God, right? So I'm in a space where I am fully trusting in where the Lord is going to take me in terms of the companionship. So I have said to myself, Lord, I am going to walk out my assignment. And as I'm walking out my assignment, as I'm doing your will, you will then give me the desires of my heart. So my focus now is really building a stronger relationship with the God I serve and being able to use what he's instilled in me to help other people progress. So that's where I am. I still have a desire, but I've shifted my focus. My focus right now is to build a relationship with the God I serve and continue to then press in or help the people progress.
Okay, excellent. All right. So now let me ask you this, because I'm totally with you. Let's see what the comments are saying. It says, walk out my assignment, trust God. Love that. What is your assignment? So Angela's asking, what is your assignment?
Right. My assignment is to get you from point A to point B. It really is to help individuals get to where they need to be. And that's in the natural. In the spirit, it's the same thing. My assignment is to help women and men to move beyond the stuck place, to walk into their potential and their greatness. And so when God gives me, I told you that I talk to God and he talks back to me. I know that may sound weird, but God is speaking. God is speaking
all the time
to me. So he does give me a prophetic gift. And so I just sit and I try to listen to what he's saying. And when he's ready for me to release what he's saying to me, to individuals, I'll do it. So I do that in the spiritual space. But in the natural space, I also help to provide strategy. I help individuals to move beyond where they are, move from this stuck place into your championship lifestyle. So that's my assignment. And those assignments run parallel. They really do run parallel. The spiritual world and the natural world, or we can say the supernatural world and the natural world, run parallel. So my assignment in both areas are tied together.
Absolutely.
I'll help you get to where you're supposed to be.
Right. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, Toyinda, it's been such a pleasure talking with you. And I thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. And again, if you want to get in contact with Toyinda, let me go ahead and put her website again, because again, she talked about having certification programs. She talked about doing camps. And even speaking, I know for some of you that are not in South Carolina, you're like, well, how's she going to speak for me? One, she can travel.
Yes, I do.
Number two, there's also, technology. So she can actually do speaking, like a webinar, or, there's different avenues that you can get a hold with her. But you guys talk about that offline. But if you do want to contact Toyinda and just schedule some time with her, and you also with your business, you do personal coaching as well?
Absolutely. And mainly in the vein of business coaching. So I love to really help individuals think beyond where they are. So remember, I talked about the young lady who wrote a book. She had not thought about turning that book into an area of profit, right? Okay. So a advanced area of profit, because, people purchasing a book, that does bring you profit, but to increase the levels of profit, she had not thought about some of the strategies that I gave her about creating a course, doing trainings, doing some speaking engagements. She had not thought to that in-depth level. She thought about it, but hadn't been sparked to go for it.
Okay. And obviously, like, for instance, for those of you out there that's never worked with a coach, that is one of the benefits of working with a coach, is that they get you to the next level, because you only know what you know, right? You need someone else to take you to the next level, and working with a coach is one of the ways to do that. So I commend you for living out your assignment and doing an excellent job at it as well. So before we close off, Toyinda, is there anything else you want to say to those that are out there watching?
Yes, the last thing I'll say is that pressure, when pressure comes, pressure is, it means that you're applying contact to whatever effort that you're trying to make, whatever project that you're trying to complete. And so I want you to stay in the press. I want you to stay in the press. And as I said, press really is a function of pressure. So you've got to keep contact towards what you want to accomplish.
All right. Well, with that, I love that quote, stay in the press. So with that, again, I want to thank you for taking the time of your busy day to watch this either live. Those of you watching live, thank you so much. And for those of you that are going to watch the recording, we appreciate you as well. And again, Toyinda's information, go to her website, which is, let me put up one more time, toyindaconsults.com. And this is where you can reach out with Toyinda, and she can take you to the next level as it relates to your business. And thank you one more time again, Toyinda, for coming on my show and sharing it. And guys, again, empowering women, this is what it's all about. Okay, this is a show designed for us to help each other. Okay, and then how do we do it? We're sharing our stories so that we can actually see that we're not alone. All right, so join me again tomorrow. I have another guest that's going to be coming on, and she's going to be talking about suffering from depression. So stay tuned to my webpage, piamcadams.com. It's on Facebook. Just search for me, Pia R. McAdams, and you'll see my fan page, and then I'll have that broadcast tomorrow. So until next time, I will see you later. And as Toyinda would say, stay in the press.
Stay in the press.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.